How do you determine the equation of a graph if you're just looking at it? Well, remember, we are using slope-intercept form, so we are using y equals mx plus b. And the first thing we want to figure out is what is the slope of this graph? And then we'll ask ourselves, what is the y-intercept? It actually helps to figure out the y-intercept first. So where does the line hit the y-axis? Well, here at the point 0, -3. So my y-intercept is -3. Some people like to refer to that as the point 0, -3. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to observe where this line hits an integral value on my graph. So in other words, where does it hit, in this case, a perfect dot, or where does it hit the crosshairs on my lined paper? So now that I see that, I'm going to remember that slope is rise over run. And you can remember that because you always want to run underneath the sun. This person has a really long stride. Okay, so you're always going to be running under the sun. So you remember slope is rise over run. So what that is trying to get you to remember is slope is the change in y over the change in x. So you're going to go up or down, and that's going to be, that amount is represented over your distance going left or right. So I'm going to start at one point, and I'm going to go up 2 and over 1, up 2 over 1, up 2 over 1, up 2 to the right 1, up 2 to the right 1. So my slope is going up 2 and to the right 1. So my slope is a 2 in this case. Notice my slope is constant along this line, and that is why this is a linear equation. Now, it's also possible that I could have looked at this and said, hey, I'm going to go down 2 and left 1. Well, that's totally fine because going down 2 and left 1 is the same thing as 2. It's still the same slope. And you know what? I could have even gone down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then I would have gone left 1, 2, 3. And look, down 6 and left 3, still that gives me a slope of 2. And so, now that I've done that, let me try to now write an equation. And so I know that my slope is 2, so this is going to become a 2, and my y-intercept is a -3. So my equation for this line is y equals 2x plus a -3, or y equals 2x minus 3. And that is the equation of this line. I'm going to pause and check, and I'll check a few things. First, I'll check my y-intercept. Should it be negative? Yes, there it is. Second, I'll check my direction. Is it a positive or a negative slope? Well, this looks like a good economy. It's a positive 2, so it's a positive slope, so that makes sense. And finally, I'm going to consider the steepness. It's decently steep. 2, a slope of 2 seems like that's decently steep, so I think that makes sense. So I think this is the correct equation for this line. Let's try another one. We're going to try to write the equation of this line. So again, first I'm going to start with my y-intercept. It's going to be this point of 0, 1. My slope, well, I'm going to figure that out by counting. Let's start by going up 1 to the right 1, up 1 to the right 1. All right, my slope is 1 over 1, or 1. Now I want to turn that into an equation, so my slope is going to be 1, and my y-intercept is going to be 1. Okay, so my equation is y equals x plus 1. Now again, if I wanted to start at this point and maybe end up at this point here, I could have gone down 1, 2, 3, 4, down 4, left 1, 2, 3, 4, left 4. And a ratio of going down 4 and left 4, that gives me a ratio or a change in the verticality versus the change in horizontal. That ratio is still 1. So that is my slope. And so this one, I see that my y-intercept is 0, negative 3. Now my slope, it appears that I see that I'm also crossing at this point, negative 3, 0. So if I went up 1, 2, 3, and left 1, 2, 3, I would hit the line. So my slope in this case is I went up 3, but then I went left 3. So my slope is a negative 1. So my equation is going to be negative 1x plus a negative 3. Now, first, I want to check that. With regard to the y-intercept, should it be a negative 3? Yes. Should this be a positive or a negative slope? Well, this looks like a bad economy, so it's supposed to be a negative slope, and that's what I have. And then finally, is this kind of steep, kind of flat? It's like right in the middle, and a slope of 1 or negative 1 is a 45-degree angle, so this seems reasonable. So see if you can write the equation of this line. I went up 9. I went right 5. So my slope is 9/5 x. Sorry, my slope is 9/5. To put it into the equation, I'm going to place it right next to the x. And now what is my y-intercept? This is the point 0, negative 4. So my b value is going to be a negative 4. So I could write this equation like that, or I could write it like this. Now let's check the y-intercept. Should it be negative and about at a negative 4? Yes, so that's good. In terms of my positive or negative slope, let's see, I chose a positive slope. Does this look like a good economy? Yes. Now consider the steepness. This is decently steep. Does it make sense that 9/5 is decently steep? Well, yeah, it's almost 10/5, so it's almost a steepness of 2. And so it shouldn't be any flatter, shouldn't be any steeper. This makes sense. So I feel comfortable that this is the correct equation.